Call the regular meeting of Fairmont City Council to order. Pledge of Allegiance will be led by myself, and the invocation by Reverend Grady Jones from New Commandment Baptist Church. Phil, please rise. And join me in pledge to our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
May we pray. Eternal God, our Father, I make my Creator. Again, we come before your presence. Thank you for another day. Thank you, Father God, for this country we live in, Father God, and we pray that thou will bring peace to this country, this world, Father God, as there's so many things going on that you're not pleased with. During this meeting tonight, Father, we pray that be with this council, Father God, as the work they've done through the years, Father God. We've seen a progress in the revitalization of the city. Pray to add to this council, Father, those who will continue that work, Father, that's been done for many, many years. As a resident of this city, Father, I've seen many, many changes, Father, over this council meeting, this council here, Father God, and ask you to keep the perfect will. Pray, Father, city as a whole, Father, unite this city like never before. Pray, Father, that all of us understand we're all your children, Father God. Someday must stand before your presence, give them kind of this thing called life. Help us to continue to be a city that's in progress, Father God, a city to be a model for the world. Again, that harmony and peace abide. In Jesus' name we pray, amen.
Amen.
Thank you. Have a roll call, please.
Councilmember Guillen?
Here.
Councilmember Lemons? Councilmember Olmos?
Here.
Vice Mayor Hoffmeyer?
Here.
Mayor Hansen?
Here.
Make a motion we excuse Councilwoman Lemons.
Second.
Been moved by Hoffmeyer, second by almost to excuse Councilmember Lemons. Have a roll call, please.
Councilmember Guillen?
Yes.
Councilmember Olmos?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Hoffmeyer?
Yes.
Mayor Hansen?
Yes. City Council public comment updates, please.
Yes, sir. We have a few from two meetings that occurred in January. The first one was on January the 14th, and we have reports back on two speakers. The first one was Ms. Tricia Bell Rose, and she, a few of her issues were bidding of contracts for professional services, survey results from polling that was done by the city, and homelessness efforts. As a result from action, we offered to meet with her to discuss with her concerns. Actually, I did. I came up to her after the meeting, and we sent her a follow-up email letter offering to meet with her. We're still awaiting word from her. I did speak with Ms. Balrose at a community meeting last week, and she is interested in meeting to discuss her issues. So I'm hoping that'll happen, and I'll report back to the council once that occurs. The second one we have to report back to you from the January 14th meeting was from Ms. Benita Meek, and she had an issue with not having parking permits for the condo complex located on Downey and 2nd Street. The after action is that staff reached out to Ms. Meek on two occasions, inviting her to the parking committee meeting last week, and we also requested copies of her parking permits. We did receive copies of her permits last week, and we will be evaluating a possible amendment to the ordinance to include the condo complex at Downey Avenue and 2nd Street. So moving on to the January 28th, 2020 meeting, we had two speakers to report back about. The first one was Mr. Alejandro Yanez. Mr. Yanez claims that he received a letter from the city in 2019 regarding comments that were made by him on social media. He interpreted this letter as an attempt to limit his free speech rights. The letter to Mr. Yanez from the city did not attempt to limit his free speech rights. The council was given another copy of this letter, and the letter is available to the public via a public records request. Also at that meeting, we did have Mr. Jose De Leon come and discuss individual spikes that were occurring at the air quality samplers in October, December, and January. Staff had already reported to the city council about Mr. De Leon's concerns from the October and the December individual spikes. We looked at the January spikes and we calculated them and found that of the samples taken by the AQMD, 3% were above 1 nanogram and 97% were below. In December, we had contacted AQMD after this issue came about, and they emailed us back stating the following, that the main health concern with hexavalent chromium is long-term exposure, years to decades. Elevated levels on individual days or a handful of days do not pose an immediate health concern. The purpose of the 1 nanogram curtailment limit in the orders for abatement was to immediately bring down the levels of hexavalent chromium emitted from these facilities, and they explain what this was based on. An average of 3 samples served as an indicator that something at the facility was causing higher levels. They conclude with South Coast AQMD staff continues to investigate when they see levels above 1 nanogram to make sure the facilities are complying with our rules. So that's how they conclude that, and that concludes my presentation. Be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. Public comments.
Yes, sir, we do have a number. There were a number of public comments submitted to discuss item number 6. So we'll get to those for those of you that are here to discuss about the youth athletic fields. Under general public comments, we have a number of those as well. The first one is from Julio, and Julio would like to discuss parking. Oh, and I think Mr. Delgado needs the Spanish language interpreter, yes.
Good evening to all of you. Are you going to be allowing me a little more time because we're interpreting?
Be another minute.
Un minuto más. Fine.
Otra vez
Well, once again,
se nos dio atole con el dedo.
you gave us atole with the dedo. I guess you make us try to make a fool out of us. You try to make a fool out of us. That's the expression.
That's how you traduce that, right?
That's what you try. Yeah, try to make a fool out of us.
Se aprobó un programa T,
You approve a program T
sí, que mañana será
that tomorrow
ejercitado,
it will be exercised in our community,
donde perjudicará
where it is going to jeopardize
comunidad
our
de la
community
Perilla de la Pase,
with the ¿de la qué?
a Perilla y Pase,
On Perilla and Passage Streets, okay.
y nos reducirá los espacios
And it's going to reduce our spaces
de 54
from
a
54
49,
to 49,
poniendo en riesgo
putting at risk 5 families
que van a estar yendo a parquear
which
sus
are going to
carros
be, they have to take and park their cars
a 2 a 3 cuadras lejos de su
2 or 3 blocks away from their homes
poniéndolas en peligro
and to place them in danger
porque
because we have a high level of crime,
y al mismo tiempo
and at the same time,
pone a alto riesgo
it will
de
expose them at
Alondra,
a high risk to use Alondra Avenue,
donde ya pasaron muchos
where it
accidentes,
already happened a lot of
la
accidents,
muerte de la señora
including the death of Mrs.
Ivonne Sanders.
Yvonne Sanders.
No entiendo,
I don't understand.
por mucho tiempo
For a long time,
nosotros hemos venido a
we've been coming here and propose
opiniones,
things,
ideas
opinions, ideas.
se nos ha ignorado,
You've been ignored. We've been ignored.
se nos ha dado otra vez a tole con el dedo
Once again, you're trying to make a fool out of us.
y no lo entendemos. ¿Por qué?
We don't understand it. Why?
La señorita de
Mrs.
Public Safety
From Public Safety,
presentó una propuesta
she presented us
hace un par
a
de meses,
proposition about 2 months ago,
que es el famoso programa T,
the famous program T,
y se aprobó rápido.
and it was approved quickly.
No se necesitó tanto tiempo. Y
We didn't need that much time.
hemos
We proposed a lot of things for a long
que ha
time.
venido por años,
People have come in here for years,
siguen mirando la cara.
and you still keep looking at us like fools.
No lo entendemos.
We don't understand
¿Qué
why.
necesitamos hacer?
What do we need to do?
¿Me pueden contestar?
Could
durante
you
mi tiempo?
answer me during my time?
Well, possibly, if you would like to respond to this, but you're done with your comments at this point?
Todavía no.
No, not yet. We still
Let's
got
finish
time.
that first.
Well, termine.
Se nos removieron un par de zonas rojas.
You took away, you removed a couple of red zones
Solamente cabe un carro en una,
where only one car fits and one car on the other.
que ya estaba todo el tiempo usado,
There was already used
porque la gente se estaba
because
poniendo en rojo
people,
porque
it
no hay
was
parking.
placing them on red because there's no parking.
No lo quieren solucionar nuestro problema.
You don't want to solve our problem.
Hemos propuesto con
We
DWP,
propose-
que hablen ellos con DWP,
Oh, to talk to EWP?
DWP,
Or DWP.
y nunca se nos da una respuesta de nada.
And you never gave us an answer. Nothing.
Hemos propuesto que se haga
We
algo para
propose
el
to do
servicio
something
peatonal,
for the
la
pedestrian crossing
de la Perilla y la Passage
on
hacia
Perilla
Cerro
Passage to the Stated Brothers,
Una luz, algo,
one light or something.
y no hay nada de respuesta.
No, no answers.
¿Qué está pasando?
What's happening?
No lo sé.
I don't know.
Nosotros, de donde yo vengo,
Where I'm
llamamos
coming from,
abuso de su poder.
we call abuse of power. That's what we call it where I come from.
Estamos cansados
We're
de
tired
que no hacen nada.
that you don't do anything.
¿Qué tenemos que hacer?
What do we have to do?
Gracias.
Thank you.
Well, hold on a minute.
Mr. Mayor, I could.
Hold on a minute.
Espérese un momento.
Yes, there's going to be some reports on that tonight,
Yes.
but you might want to expound upon that
Absolutely,
too.
for sure. Yes, there will be, I'd like to go over a few of those kind of in order, the way he brought them in.
Sure.
As far as the Ts go, this was an item that we brought to the community back in, I want to say, October or September. I'm looking at you, Adriana, sometime around there.
I believe it was September.
In September, and we held 2 separate community meetings with the residents that were out there. And from what I'm being told, the residents were supportive of it, with exception of 2. We explained to them that this will be then heard at the Public Safety Commission, which we had a hearing there, invited all the residents to come and speak about that. This, once again, is a pilot program. We explained that to the residents. We like to try it out to see if it works. If it doesn't work, they will, and if we don't see an increased amount of parking or people aren't happy with it, there is a street project that's going to happen there in July. And the Ts at that point could be removed. It's very possible. But we want to get more feedback. We want to see if this works. This has been identified as one of the solutions in the City of Southgate's comprehensive parking report. The City of Bell Gardens also did a parking study, and that was identified. We've also tried Ts on Adams Street off of Downey, and they work. The residents there are happy about it. So there's a lot that going on with that, not just something that we put in at the last minute. That's as far as the Ts go. With the red curb on Alondra, we reported to the parking committee last week that an entire engineer study was done from on Alondra from Downey to Hayter, and the results showed that there could only be a certain portion of red curb removed. That red curb has been removed as of today, and they are providing extra parking spaces. However, we're not going to go against the engineer's evaluation and remove extra red curb. That report has been done by a professional engineer, one of them that you'll meet tonight. So there's that one. As far as other options that we looked at, we are definitely looking at several options. Mr. Serta, as you know, brought up the option of doing one-way streets in a passage in Parilla and then moving the cars onto private alleyways. We checked with our city attorney if that's possible for a city to force traffic on public streets onto a private driveway. It's really not at this point, so that's not in the cards, and we will report back to the parking committee at that point. And John, if you want to elaborate on the part, please feel free to. And so there's a lot of stuff being done. In addition to that, with the parking on the DWP lot, we'll have a report back to the committee where we are with that. I informed the council that we are very close to hiring a consultant to help us navigate through the complex challenges at DWP, which there are several complex navigation that has to be done with that organization. So we are trying, and we have tried with DWP to open up the possibility of a parking lot in there. So we're doing several things. Oh, additionally, too, we canvassed the area for the Clutter-Free Paramount program, which was a drop-off program. And we did have a resident take advantage of that, cleaned out their garage, and now is parking their cars in there. So we'll continue to try and find solutions through the parking committee, through looking at other options that cities have looked at. It's just definitely a complicated thing.
Okay. Yes.
How many parking spots did you make available when you removed the red?
Do you recall what it was? I think there's only
Yes,
3, I
there's
think?
about, let me see, 1 closer to Hayter and 2 closer to Downey on the north side of Alondra. So 3.
Okay.
I have one question too. Sorry, Mayor.
Go
So
ahead.
we're saying that the parkings went from 54, he said 54 to 49, so we're going down. So when the residents were told about these Ts happening, were they informed that they were gonna be losing parking? I'm not saying that we're losing, I need to validate that. But if we're going from 54 to 49, when the survey went out to them about the Ts wanting that, were they aware that they were gonna lose space?
Yes, when the presentation was made, it was presented that it was more for equity of parking and that we would not be increasing parking spaces, we would actually be decreasing. My estimate is just by 3 parking spots, and the Ts are gonna be 20 feet apart, which is pretty standard. And it was included in the presentations that we did.
In the presentations?
Yes.
Who was there? Any further questions?
Yeah, I just have a comment. I'm a little, John, and maybe you can help me with this. John Moreno. We have a bunch of Johns and a bunch of Adrianas.
Everywhere you look.
So as far as citing now, when we have a parking issue like this in the city of Paramount and we just decrease their parking and there's no other option, I mean, I think we really do need to consider how we're going to be ticketing and how often, because truly, if we don't have a solution, what are they supposed to do? What are the residents supposed to do? Now, if they're parking in a red zone and there's other parking spots available, then yes, cite. But if there's no other solution, what are they supposed to do?
It is no doubt a difficult problem, and I'm sure you're referring to the reduction that Adriana just talked about. You said there was 3 spaces that we're estimating would go away,
Correct. I believe we're eliminating 3 spaces.
and there were 3 recovered on Alondra, so there's a wash there. But I get it. The idea is to create more, and that's what we're
Right,
looking
but
for. So-
but not just
and-
that. The fact of the matter is, there is no parking.
Oh, absolutely.
And so how do we cite people for parking illegally when we don't have a solution for them?
No, you're absolutely right, Councilmember. It's a difficult problem, and this is not the only area of town. That
So
we
what
have.
I'm saying is, I don't think we should be ticket heavy either. I don't think we should be holding anybody hostage when there's no place to park. And you know what? An $80 ticket or a $60 or a $40 ticket to a working class person over and over, that's detrimental to anybody's finances. So I think we need a solution short term until we can find parking. What is the solution to, that makes a huge difference, a $50 in your budget. Not everybody lives a privileged life, and finances and, $40 here and $40 there make all the difference in the world. So I think we need to say, we need to be not so ticket happy. Now we got these Ts, and the last thing I want to see is now code enforcement going in there and giving everybody tickets when there's no place to park.
Sure.
If I could
yeah.
say something, please. We usually, I would say 95% of the time, we go out and ticket when we receive a complaint. So when the residents that could be the neighbor call in and say there's somebody who's illegally parked, our history has always been to go out and address the issue.
Okay.
So when that resident calls us back and says, you haven't done anything, these people are still illegally parked, that's where that balance is, where I have to let the person know who called that we did do something, but it's kind of that
A
balancing
warning,
act.
I think we could come up with some type of warning system where they've been warned once and then, try to find a park. I mean, but what's the solution? If there's no
Without
parking,
thin
where are they
air.
gonna
The thing of
go?
it is, though, if you're saying that a resident is calling on another resident, then they're gonna be calling us saying, well, you're not enforcing your policies.
Correct.
But maybe, since this is a pilot program, maybe we can pilot something in that neighborhood for parking enforcement. I mean, I
An
get what you're saying.
incentive, an
Well, usually
incentive.
what we do is we do 2 to 3 weeks of warnings. We never, when we start a new program, we never right off the bat start enforcing. The reason why we presented these parking teas is because on a daily basis, we would get people to call saying that people are saving spaces. So what they would do is they would create, let's say, 4 or 5 feet in between their own cars, and then when a relative would come home, everybody would go out, move their cars, and let the person who had gone to work. The biggest complaint was there was no equity. So it puts us in a difficult situation because we can't cite for anything in that nature. But with the parking tees, it's almost like coloring within the lines. Stay within your lines and you won't get cited.
Mr. Mayor,
Okay.
I think this is a great discussion, but you're
Yeah.
turning a public comment into an agenda item. It's not on the
Not
agenda.
on the agenda, right?
So I think this is good discussion. If you want to put this on as agenda item later on to talk about it, you can do that. But I think right now, the gentleman has made his public comments. You made some preliminary comments back, and then you got to end this.
Okay, fine.
And then this is definitely, just so you know, Mayor and council members, this is definitely on the agenda for at the next parking committee meeting.
Yeah, so the parking committee. right.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Okay,
Okay,
Thank you.
our next speaker is Teresa. There's no last name Teresa, and she'd also like to discuss parking.
Okay, está bien.
¿Hasta cuándo?
Till
¿Hasta
when?
cuándo va a ser el complot en
Until
contra de los
when
residentes de la
we're
ciudad
going to
de
do a
Paramount?
complaint against the city and
Estamos
residents of
cansados
Paramount.
de tanto-
We're tired of so
estamos
many
cansados hasta de los
tickets.
tickets
We're even
que están
tired of
dando en
tickets
propiedad
that you give in
privada.
private
Tengo una
property.
prueba.
I have proof of that.
El programa T. Acaban de hablar
The
del
program
T
T, you
ustedes,
just
¿ok?
talk about the program
Podríamos
T.
posponer el
We can
programa T
postpone the
hasta que por
program
lo
T
menos arreglen
until
la calle
maybe you
primero,
can
porque la
fix
calle
the
tiene
street
bastantes
first
cuarteaduras
because the
y
street has
eso,
got
la
a lot of
verdad,
cuts
a
and holes.
nosotros como residentes nos
Us
está
as
afectando
residents
a
is
nuestros
affecting us
automóviles.
to our cars.
Bueno, acaban de decir que ya hablaron
You
con
just said that you
DWP de
spoke to
Los Ángeles.
DWP in Los
¿Cuál fue la
Angeles.
respuesta?
What was the
¿Cuál
answer?
fue la respuesta?
What was the answer?
Ok, la marca es en caso de que
¿La
en
marca
el
qué?
futuro, la marca T,
Mark
en
T.
caso de que en el futuro se
In case in the
implementara,
future we
o ustedes
implement,
aprobaran,
or maybe you would approve
positivamente a favor de
positively
los
in favor of the residents,
pudiera ser en lugar
it
de
could
20
be the
pies
place
para
maybe
todos los
20
carros,
feet
pudieran
for
ser
all the
también para
cars,
menos
or
pies
maybe
para carros
less
compactos,
feet for maybe
podrían
compact
ser
cars.
menos pies
It
tal
could
vez
be
para un
less
área de
feet maybe for a
motocicletas, pudiera ser
motorcycle.
también, un área para
Maybe it could be an
handicaps.
area for
Sería
handicap
buena idea
parking.
también
It would
pensar en
be a
todas
good
esas
idea to
personas.
think
Por
about
ejemplo,
all
yo
those
tengo un carro
people.
que
But
mide
for
9
instance,
pies.
I have a
No
car.
necesito
It's
20
9
pies
feet
para
long.
parquear mi
I
carro,
don't need 20
¿verdad?
feet to park my car.
Por otra parte, quitaron,
In other words,
van a quitar 3
you're going to
estacionamientos
remove
por
3
calle.
parking
Acaban de decir
spaces
que
per
son 3
street. You just said there's going to be
estacionamientos solamente,
3
pero no,
only.
son 3 a 5
But there's 3
estacionamientos
to
porque
5
estamos
per
hablando de
street.
Passage,
We're talking
estamos
about
hablando de
Passage. We're
Perilla,
talking about
¿verdad?
Perilla, right?
Otra cosa,
Something
algo
else.
que me molesta
Something that really
enormemente como
bothers me a
residente de
lot
esa
as
área
resident
es de
from
que la
that area
barredora pasa
is that the
2
sweeper, the
veces a la
street sweeper
semana
comes
por
twice a
calle
week on the
Alondra,
street, on
2
Alondra
veces
Street,
no es necesario
twice. It's
por
not
los 2
necessary
lados,
on
¿ok?
both sides of the
Y
street.
uno de esos días que
One
es
of
el
those
lunes,
days
la
is
barredora
Monday and the
pasa por
sweeper
Passage,
passes
por uno de los
through
lados,
Passage on
pasa
one
por
side,
uno de los
it
lados
goes
de
through the
Perilla
other
y
side of
pasa por los
Perilla,
2
and then
lados
it
de
goes from
Alondra.
both sides on
¿Dónde
Alondra.
nos vamos a
Where
estacionar
are
el
we going to
lunes?
park on Monday?
Entre 8 de la mañana y
Between
10 de la
8
mañana.
and 10 a.m.
¿Dónde nos vamos a
Where are we
estacionar?
going to park?
Solamente hay 2 calles.
There's
Nos
only
quitan el
2 streets.
estacionamiento
If you
como
take away
como
those
de 100
parking
carros.
spaces of 100
Eso
cars,
es un complot
that's a
contra de la
complot. It's
ciudadanía.
against
Las
a
personas
city.
que no tenemos
People
dónde
that we don't have
estacionar,
where
¿a
to
dónde
park. Where are
o
we
nos
going to
tenemos
park?
que
So we
estacionar en
either
State
have to
Brothers,
park on the State Brothers or
arriesgándonos a que nos,
risking that maybe we're going to get a,
la grúa se lleve nuestro
maybe
carro,
our car is going to be towed away.
o nos arriesgamos a un ticket
Are we risking to get a
que son arriba
citation,
de
a
$50.
ticket? It's over $50.
Nos estacionamos
Are we going to park maybe
techo de nuestras casas.
on a roof,
¿Dónde nos
our
vamos a
homes?
estacionar?
Where are we going to
Lunes
park
de
then?
8 de la mañana
Monday from
a 10
8
de la
a.m.
mañana.
to 10
¿Dónde nos
a.m.
vamos a
Where are we
estacionar?
going to park?
Le invito a la señora
I'll
Figueroa
invite
que
Mrs.
por
Figueroa.
favor vaya a esa calle,
Please
a la calle
come
Alondra,
to the
para que
street
usted
on
observe
Alondra
con
so
sus
you
propios
can
ojos y use
observe
su propio
your own
criterio
eyes and
para
use your own
poder-
criteria
para
so
poder
you can
usted
see
pensar que
maybe
tal vez
you
pudiera
can
quitar
think
algunas
perhaps you
zonas
can
rojas
remove some
del
of those
área
red
sur de la
zones
calle
on the
Alondra,
south
que hay
side of the Alondra
bastante espacio
Street.
que se
There's a
puede
lot of
utilizar.
space that you can
Qué
remove
bueno
that.
que ya fue por
I
ahí.
don't know if you've been there.
Qué bueno que ya fue. Entonces,
You did maybe,
inteligentemente
yeah. So
y
very smartly
contratando
then,
ingenieros
and
que realizan
hiring
todo su
engineers
trabajo
that they really can do their
adecuadamente y
job
con buena
adequately
voluntad,
and
que
with
no
good.
mandan un niño de 16
Not to
años
send a
que yo
16-year-old
misma
kid
hablé con
that
él,
I spoke to
tomando
him
medidas
that
y
he's
realmente
taking
yo no veo
measurements,
que él tenga
and
la
I don't
suficiente
see that he
madurez como
has
para haber
maturity
tomado
enough
las medidas
to be and take
adecuadamente.
the right measurements correctly.
Estoy hablándoles directamente,
I'm talking to you
estoy
directly.
molesta y
I'm really
realmente
upset
estoy
up to a
decepcionada.
certain point. I'm really
Hay muchas
upset,
posibilidades de que
and
mi
this,
voto no vaya a ser para
maybe
ustedes
my
en las
vote's not
próximas
going to be
elecciones.
for you guys on the next elections.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next card. Next card is, doesn't have a name, it just says second-class citizen.
Good evening, Mayor, council members, staff, and audience. Just want to answer a couple things that were mentioned. First of all, I want to welcome the assistant manager. I wasn't here in January, so I want to welcome him. I also want to mention that what do we need to do? Do we need to do a Public Records Act on the cost to the citations, since it's being mentioned that people are calling on neighbors to come ticket them because that's what's being said? It's hearsay. Let's see the proof, the black and white. That's what I go off of. The Public Safety Commission also asked for proof on the yeas and the nays on this T marks. Where's the proof for that? Is it just because there's none, we're gonna say, well, nobody disagreed, so everybody's in favor of it? No, let's have black and white proof. This is what the chairman of the commissioner from Public Safety mentioned on the last meeting, where the traffic engineer was and didn't have much information for us. Also, the support, the proof from the traffic engineer on what determines the red curves and the distances. You know, we did have the traffic commission, but the traffic engineer didn't mention much, and it would have been nice, since we talked about red curves, if he would have mentioned or enlightened us on what determines the red light and distances on the curbs. So I'm gonna go off with the same thing. No parking. Tomorrow we have no parking on one side of Perilla and Passage, anytime. And again, what's the time frame? I mean, from say 12 o'clock at midnight, 12:01 till 11:59, all night, all day. What's the time frame? There's no time frame. And I brought this that was on the floor, and I know they're everywhere all over the city because it says anytime. So anytime. So again, there's no time frame. And I'll leave this here for public safety. So again, it's like, where are we gonna park for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, or all day tomorrow? And the following day, because the following day is on the next side. You know, this is a situation that the city is putting the residents in. So what's the solution? And I know, Ms. Olbos, you asked for solutions, and I wrote an email. I sent an email, and I talked to the city manager. I talked to Ms. Figueroa at Public Safety with solutions. It's like, we're getting pushback. No solutions are being put. We're just getting pushback. And that's why we're a little bit uncomfortable. So yes, we are second-class citizens for this parking issue. Is the city providing distance location with shuttles? You know, if they're providing like a parking spot at Progress, and you're shuttling us home, you know, that's a solution. But is that being done? No. Also, the street being resealed before the T marking. You know, they're saying that, well, the street's gonna be resealed somewhere in June and July. Why don't we do it now before we do the T marks instead of doing the work twice at taxpayers' expense? You know, again, makes no common sense. Seems like there's a rush to this T marks from 0 to 100. And again, we're having all these issues with solutions. Thank you very much, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Our next speaker, Mr. Mayor, is Inez Bracamontes, and she'd like to discuss Measure Y.
Good evening, everyone, Mayor, council members. Allow me to thank you for the time and energy that you dedicate to the city of Paramount. It is appreciated. I'm here to express my support to Measure Y. My family and I have roots in Paramount since 1976, when my in-laws first purchased their home here in the Sands, as they were called. It would always be home. If Measure Y is approved, the tax revenue will stay in Paramount, and the City Council will be able to allocate those monies through the budget process. If we do not vote to approve Measure Y, we will still be taxed by the state or the country or the county, and we will never see that money directly benefit Paramount. Those funds are needed in this community. I have been, I don't have the parking issues that some of the people here speaking have, but even that money could perhaps be allocated to help with those issues that they're having. Remember that this tax increase will not apply to rent, to medicine, to groceries. And I urge you to vote yes on Measure Y. If you need more information, please go to ParamountMeasureY.org. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay.
Our next speaker is Miss Andrea Crow, and she'd like to discuss the library programs. Ms. Crow?
Good evening. Mayor Hanson, council members, and the City of Paramount. This month is packed full of fun events at Paramount Library. On February 11th at 4 p.m., our Teen Tuesday event invites teens ages 12 to 18 to learn about career pathways with a focus on becoming a lawyer. Refreshments will be served and there will be a gift card giveaway. On Wednesday, February 12th at 4:30, we're hosting a special family story time. Families are invited to learn about Valentine's Day through fun stories, activities, and crafts. And on Saturday, February 15th at 2 p.m., children ages 7 to 12 and their families can listen to songs performed on a steel drum at our Caribbean Drum Circle. For adults, we'll be hosting a resume workshop on Saturday, February 29th at 2 p.m. Attendees will learn how to write a powerful and compelling resume. Residents are encouraged to call the library now to register as space is limited. Learn more about these and other great programs at lacountylibrary.org. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker, Mr. Mayor, is Mr. Jose de Leon. Mr. de Leon?
Good evening to City Councils, Mayor, Administration, public. It's nice to see a lot of kids here, and I'm glad. I'm happy to see them.
Hey.
The same way that we take them to church, that's what we need to do too. We have to empower them at early age as a citizen to become a good citizen. And I want to clarify to Mr. Moreno the reason that I mentioned about the monitors. Yeah, they are low. The numbers are down. But I don't know if any of you remember the last couple of years when we questioned AQMD, and they brought, actually the city hired some two science, and we questioned them, we asked them about chromium 6, which is the normal level that we can breathe, and they just say it has to be 0, no like 0.3, 0.5, and I know the city and AQMD, they set a rule in which they were going to allow 1 nanogram as a normal standard or as a normal reading due to our codependence of industrial factories. But it doesn't mean it's good for us in general. And that's what I keep pushing about this issue. And as some of you know, I'm running for a city council, and part of my platform is one is to put restrictions to those companies, the same way that we have restrictions at home. I've been walking the streets, and people is complaining about after Christmas light, the city give them a citations or the parking issue. You know, there are restrictions that we have. And why they don't have restrictions to. La otra es, hablo siempre de términos de reelección, porque no se puede estar en un puesto más de 20 años, menos ser nombrado en un sistema democrático. Nada de eso es admitido, mucho menos ético, tanto para el que elige como para el que es elegido. Y cuando se tiene dignidad, se rechaza eso. Gracias.
Thank you.
Our next speaker.
That's one. I just want to thank the city attorney to correct you, because I think there was a violation of the Brown Act between you guys interacting with us.
Okay, I don't know.
Okay, next.
No.
Our next speaker is Ms. Sonia De Leon. She'd like to speak about freedom of speech.
Good evening, elected and appointed incumbents. Buenas noches a nuestra comunidad hispano-parlante. My name is Sonia Olmos de Leon. I speak here tonight in this less than transparent public meeting, not as an elected school board member of our school district, but as a concerned private citizen of our beloved but environmentally ailing city of Paramount. First, under the California Public Records Act, I am formally requesting in this public forum, even though I made the request via email months ago, that you provide me with all records of the City Council's process of how and why the decision to pay for legal counsel to draft and mail a fear-mongering and slanderous letter to the Paramount Unified School District Board of Trustees concerning an unsubstantial private matter allegedly involving me. This letter, which had no moral or legal merit, was welcomed and approved by the vote of members of the City Council without any concern for existing conflict of interest. Which brings me to the second concern that brings me here tonight. Under our First Amendment rights, we the people have the right for freedom of speech. Your current rules of decorum do not reflect our given rights under the First Amendment. In fact, clapping is a form of free speech. Yet, under your rules, we are not to engage in clapping. Let me remind the City Council that you are open to the litigation. Nevertheless, I'm formally requesting a copy of the rules of decorum the City Council should follow. On the other hand, I want to take this opportunity to formally clarify a possible confusion regarding my blood family's last name, Olmos. There is an unelected member on this City Council who carries my family's name through law, which both of us carry the last name Olmos. We are not related by blood nor by code of ethics. I believe in community empowerment, in the right of our children and community for a clean environment. I believe in the democratic process and transparency of our government. I believe in the government by the people, for the people, not in corporate-owned career politicians who perpetuate themselves only to safeguard the interests of their corporate bosses. And in those fundamental ethics and civic cornerstones, me and your unelected City Council member, which adopted my family's last name, cannot be further apart. Viva la comunidad de Paramount. Muchas gracias.
Thank you.
That was the last speaker.
That was it?
That was the last speaker for the general public comments, but we do have more for item number 6.
Item number
Yep,
6.
absolutely.
Okay, we're down to the consent calendar.
Make a motion, we move consent calendar?
Second.
Been moved by Hoffmeyer, second by Olmos to move the consent calendar. Can we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Guillen,
Yes.
Councilmember Olmos,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Hoffmeyer,
Yes.
Mayor Hansen.
Yes. Item number 6, Paramount Youth Sports League's field allocation. We want to do the report first?
Yes, sir.
or-
If that would be okay with you.
What's that, I'm sorry?
If that would be okay with
Yes,
Mayor.
do
Okay,
the report.
great. Okay, Mr. Mayor, this first item deals with recreational field space. And as you know, field space has been a decades-long issue for us. The bottom line is that as a built-out city, we don't have a lot of vacant land. And this results in very little opportunity to add new park space. Add to this, we have a number of very active youth sports leagues, obviously some that are here tonight, that vie for this play space. So providing adequate play area for all of these needs has become more of an art than a science for our recreation department. You may have in the past received calls from parents or other community members about this struggle that we have for the fields. So this presentation that you're about to hear is meant kind of to educate you and give you some perspective about our available field space, who's using it, and when they're using it. And with that, I'll turn it over to our Community Services and Recreation Director, Dave Johnson, to handle the item. Dave?
Thank you, John. Mr. Mayor and council members. As John mentioned, through this presentation, we're going to give you an overview of our sports facility assets, limitations on those assets, and how these assets are currently allocated out to the various youth leagues. So this is our youth league family. We have everything from baseball, softball, soccer, tackle football, and flag football operating in our city. So there's two seasons that we distinguish that they all attempt to operate under. We have a recreation category, which for us is our priority because these are the leagues where it is open to kids of all abilities and various ages, but this is a more inclusive program that we advocate for. They do operate following those recreation seasons. They operate what we call competitive leagues. So these can consist of either all-stars, fall ball, which is an instructional program after spring baseball, and in soccer, they participate in club and travel ball. Now, because the recreational league is the city priority, that's where we try to give them the maximum amount of help that we can. Now, so the question is, who can get a permit to use a city field space? The independent youth leagues are our priority because they operate recreation leagues and they have a broader outreach into the community. These are also the groups that will, these are the only groups, the independent youth leagues are the ones that will permit the PUSD fields. Now, because of our, as John mentioned, we're built out, we have a lack of field space. Historically, we have not accommodated independent groups, or not call them independent groups, but private groups, that have come to us and said, hey, I've got a team and I want to rent space. Historically, we don't do that because we have not had adequate field space to accommodate them. As some of the leagues have grown in size and diminished in size, that may have changed to a certain degree. But the two groups that could apply for use of the fields outside of the independent youth leagues would be a group that came to us that is a for-profit, meaning they're charging the kids to play on their team. We do have a fee structure in place for that. As in my 20 years in the recreation department, we've never actually had to use it because, again, we've never had space to provide. You could be a nonprofit private group and meet our residency and insurance requirements and be able to use available field space if we have it. So what assets do we have? We have city fields, and we'll go over in detail on those city fields. But again, city fields are obviously easy for us. We have a lot of control over that space. But a lot of our field space is through our joint use agreement with Paramount Unified School District. There's limitations to that, obviously. Because it's their fields, they have priority use. So if they have uses going on that interfere with our permit request, they'll deny our permit request because their uses take priority. Other restrictions that affect both city fields and PUSD fields is sometimes they have to shut the fields down and renovate them, just like we do. They also need time for their fields to rest. So in our presentation about city fields, you'll see that we're trying to get to the point where we have December and January generally as field shutdowns just to give fields to rest. Now, this is not an appropriate time to grow those fields. That's in the spring. So again, there's always that fight over how can we maintain our fields and still allow uses to occur. And then certainly the fields get restricted during weather events. So city fields, this is what we have. Paramount Park, what you have on this park is 2 lit baseball fields and a large parking lot. So this is a very conducive field space for sports. Progress Park, we have 2 softball fields also lit. We have a very large parking lot there. And again, also very conducive towards sports. At All-American Park, this originally had a small ball field on it. That was taken down, and over the years, we built a dedicated soccer space there. It's basically sized for U10, and it does have lights. We put in permanent goals, but this park is limited by the fact it has a very small parking lot. It's in a residential neighborhood, and so the parking along the edges of the park are sometimes constrained by the uses of our residents. Spanny Park, also another former ball field. You'll still see the backstop there. The brick dust has been removed and grass now grows there. This can also be used for a variety of reasons. It's a very small field, but it does have lights, but also the same problem. It has a small parking area, which has sometimes caused problem for the residential area as well as the local businesses. PUSD, this is what we have from the district that we're allowed to use. Paramount Park or Paramount High School West campus has a very large field. It has 2 softball fields on it, which are not lit. There is 1 large baseball field, which is lit. So it does provide some lighting for that general space. This is the only place that the city has a 13 and over baseball field. So you do not find this on a city park. This is the only place where we have that size field. And it's a good place in terms of sports access. We have large parking. They can use Paramount Park, which is to the north of this field, and they also have a district field that the district lets us access. Roosevelt Elementary School, also another large field. Its former origin was it had 2 large softball fields on it. The backstops are still there, but the brick dust has been removed and it's been grassed over. So they do have lights, so it has a large recreational space to use. In terms of parking, that front parking lot at Roosevelt is open for use, and then after that gets filled up, it's as whatever parking is available in the community along the street. And then Alondra School, there's 2 fields here. We call one the front field, the back field. The back field is where you see that oval. That is actually an unlit space. It does have, it is set up actually for football. It has goal posts. The front field is the one that we permit for generally for soccer. It has some lights because, again, they were formerly softball fields. So they weren't, again, designed for anything other than softballs, but there is a lit space there. It still remains 1 softball field there. And it does actually have 2 parking lots, one to the north and to the south, that makes it helpful to use that field. Whoops. So to kind of put it out graphically how the fields get used, this would be our recreation seasons. And so on the left column are all the parks that we've just talked about and district spaces. Up top are the months. You see that I have eliminated January and December. And again, that's very broadly done simply because, again, this includes their practice time, their game times. You can fudge a little bit into December and January, but again, we're trying to create some time in which the fields can rest. So you'll see that most of them are running spring seasons. FNL, which is Friday Night Lights, which is a flag football program, they run a spring and fall recreation season. And then West Coast Rebels, the one in gray there, the WCR, they run a fall recreation season. You'll take a look at Paramount High School West on the bottom. You'll see that PYSO, which is soccer, and PWA, which is baseball, actually have to coexist on that park. Again, Paramount High School West is the only place we have a 13 and up ball field. So Paramount, that's the only place Paramount Junior Athletic Association can go. So they share that space at times with PYSO, our soccer program. Here's the competitive season, which they generally fill up in the fall. You see West Coast Rebels there. They run kind of like spring clinics to encourage kids to participate and do drills. You see on both slides that Spaney Park is open. We don't program anything there currently. We have in the past. We kind of use it now as a catch-all, so if something gets closed or there's a problem or something needs to expand, we can possibly put them there, but that's kind of our fallback field at this point. When you overlay both of those field access, this is what you get. As you can see, the fields are in use all year round. There is constant pressure to use all these fields, which is absolutely understandable. We have vibrant youth leagues, and they need this space. But you see there's little opportunity for field shutdowns, and when that happens, there's a cascading effect. And then there's also a little time for rest for the fields as well. This also impacts at the use of these fields, sometimes city fields at least, for the general public use. I can give you an example. I mean, they don't like being moved to All-American Park because there is a community around there that likes to use that field after hours for their own recreational purposes. So, again, it's just this constant struggle where you've got recreational teams that are permitted to use that space. The general community is trying to use that space. I know at Progress Park, it's a constant battle for the girls' softball. They're using the ball fields, and kids are trying to come out and play soccer, and they're constantly having trouble coexisting. And then again, you see the overlap of coexistence at Paramount High School West with PYSO and PWA, again, only because that ball field is the only place that we have a field of that size. You'll see on here generally, again, PYSO has grown into our largest youth league, and they actually have been programmed with the most space. This is our field allocation puzzle. This is what we go through. We need to identify the type of sport, the type of field they need, the space that's required to run that sport with the fields that we have available. We have to take a look at the number of players they have to make sure that's adequate for the times and days that we can allocate to them. We have to look at, our seasons change. Fall, it's not light. It gets dark early. We have to see if we have lights, and a lot of our fields don't have proper lighting. We also don't have proper parking sometimes to manage these large groups that need to use that space. And then there's a fight between, do we use a city park or a district field? The district fields are wonderful because they're gated, and so you have controlled access to those. The city parks are problematic simply because, again, the general public is trying to use them at the same time we're trying to put permitted groups on there. So we keep applying for grants, as John alluded to, that we're built out, but we do try to find opportunities to expand our fields. It's tough. There's no open space to really go after, but we try. We keep trying. This is the puzzle that we have to work with. This is what we have available to us. We're also working on a program partner agreement with the youth leagues that we hope to bring to the commission in February, and we'll bring to the council hopefully in March, which will more clearly define their periods which they can use the fields and create better lines of communication as to when certain paperwork is due from us, it's due from them, and we're hoping that will clarify some of these problems that the leagues are having in terms of when they can access the fields. So that concludes my presentation. I would be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, first off, any questions from council members?
Maybe let's listen to the speakers and then we'll go from there, right?
Okay, so, okay, speakers?
Sure. Our first speaker, Mr. Mayor, is Ms. Luis Baptista. Mr. Baptista.
No parking? Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Council. Good evening, Directors. But most importantly, good evening, my beloved Paramount community. Les decía buenas noches al Mayor, al Alcalde, a todos, pero más importante, a mi amada comunidad de Paramount. ¿Por qué estoy aquí en esta noche? Why am I here tonight? I heard about field allocation. I hear about these issues that are happening today. I'm here because these kids right here are our future. They're the next mayor. They're the next director. They're the next police officer. They're the next firefighter. And their sports program is giving these kids an opportunity to go to high school, to go to college, to play for their high school, to possibly get a scholarship. That's why I'm here today, for them. But I want to dive into what I have and the proposition and the ideas and a question. The reason I'm here today, as I said, is to speak about the field permits issues soccer and other sports programs are having. Some city staffers are simply sitting on our permits. And this is affecting our children's sports development. I'm going to give you an example. 6 months ago, our board and I gave all the required documents to our Community Parks and Services Division, all the required documents 6 months prior to the deadline. Some city staffers sat on those permits, causing delays in the kids' development, and not allowing us to go into the practices almost a month after. We usually go in break in December, come back the first week of January. We didn't start almost until February. Why is this important to us? Because we go into these elite tournaments that are giving our children the opportunity to be seen by colleges. That's the reason why this is important to me and why I'm passionate about it. It's giving our children the opportunity to be seen by colleges like UCLA, by colleges like Santa Barbara, those types of universities that our community, our working class communities may not have the financial means to go to these colleges on their own. So sports is a great avenue for these opportunities. That's the reason why I'm here today. Let's try to hire grant writers. Vamos a tratar de contratar personas que están adecuadas para esto. I know Mr. Johnson has a lot of work and a lot of stuff going on, but we need to hire the right people for the right jobs. Last year I heard a lot of raises in salaries and this and that. Why can't we hire a grant writer? Why can't we hire more park supervision? As I said, the permits were delayed. Let's begin to rebuild the relationship between the city and the district. I keep on hearing it's the district's fault. The district's fault. I keep on hearing it's the city's fault. What's happening in between our city and our district? Do we need to go, Mr. Mayor, do you need to go and talk to the superintendent? Does it have to go to that level? What should we do about the relationship between our city and our school district? That is why I'm here today. If I can have 15 more seconds because of the Spanish moment.
Do it quickly.
And the other thing I'm here about is the
the sports and the parking issues are affecting, the street races are affecting our children's, and they're endangering our lives and our children's lives. Parents go and walk to these parks and to these schools and to all the areas in our city with their children on hand. What are we doing about the street racers? Are we looking to hire more deputies? Are we looking to hire security? Something. That's why I'm here today, and that is my question to the city council today.
Okay, thank you. Further comments?
Yes, sir.
Public comments.
Yes,
Further
sir.
Public comments.
John, can I provide a clarification?
It's up to the mayor.
What's that?
Mr. Bautista, so the last the last round of Prop 68 state grants, the council did allocate us, I think, over $30,000, and we hired a grant writer, a well-known grant writer, an established grant writer, to actually produce those grants. So we did actually go that route, and council was nice enough to allocate those funds, and we had all 5 grants written by a professional grant writer.
Okay, thank you.
And I just want to clarify too, we did have a meeting with Mr. Johnson, and we did bring these issues up. Obviously, because of the lack of time, I couldn't introduce it into the speech today, but we look forward to keep on working hard together, not just one-sided, not just through give everything to PY so when you guys deal with it. We need to work together as a city and a district and the community. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, our next speaker is Mr. Ignacio Romero.
Buenas noches. Ocupo a ver si alguien me puede traducir.
Good evening to all of you. My point is that we have about 18 years with football here in Paramount. We form the kids when they come to, high school, junior high. They're already shaped by us. And for the same reason, we come here so that maybe we can borrow the schools so we can continue training our children, because the motivation is to get them away from gangs, away from the streets, and maybe they can have a better criteria when they get to adulthood. To me, it's an honor that my kids, they played, some of them, with Christian Perez, Frankie Perez, and New York University, Oscar Canela. It's a university in Texas. And they're all of them formed here in the city of Paramount. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Next speaker card, Mr. Mayor, is Mr. Victor Vega. Mr. Vega?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, councils. I'd just like to speak about the PYSO. And first of all, thank you, David, for everything you have done for us. But I'm just here because of the safety, because I'm a volunteer for the youth soccer team, and we are at the Roosevelt School, and the safety there is a little bit. There's a lot of cars passing by too much, really fast. And that's the reason I'm actually here, because of the safety of the kids and everything. And also because of the, you know what, I've been doing this coaching for probably about 7 years already, with the same fields at the Roosevelt School. And I noticed one thing, okay, for the past 7 years, we never got anything from it. Not a container, not nothing. And now the football team that is in there, they already got a container there. I mean, how fast that was, I don't know. Okay? I don't know what's going on that side or what. But we have no containers at the Roosevelt. Also, because of the bathrooms also, the bathrooms are really dirty. I mean, something's got to be done on that side there. And some trash cans and everything. The only reason is because we already talked to our parents regarding all the family, and we talk about to clean up the area, but we don't know what to put, put it on the trash or anything. And I think they need to put some other trash cans and everything on the side. But the most important thing what I'm here for is because of the safety. The safety's gotta be there. Something's gotta be done because too many cars are passing by too fast, and they can hit a kid. Okay, so that was my basically concern about this. Thank you.
Okay, I have one question before you go away. You're talking about cars speeding up and down the street, is that type of thing? Can we look into that, Adriana, and maybe when they're practicing or playing or whatever?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Okay, there you go.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Last speaker's card on this topic, Mr. Mayor, is Mr. Christopher, and I'm sorry, Christopher, I can't make out your last name, but it starts with a J. Jaquette. Thank you, sir.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for having me. My name is Christopher Jaquette, and I'm the president of the West Coast Rebels. I wanted to come out here today to introduce myself and let you guys know a little bit about our program. We are a tackle youth football program that was built specifically to fill the void of Paramount residents. The city of Paramount has not had a youth football program in quite some time, and we wanted to be able to offer that opportunity to children. The same way that soccer is very, very important to this community, so is football. There are a lot of residents here. Upon building our program, we wanted to make sure that we did it the right way. So we contacted the city of Paramount. We had several meetings to discuss what are the requirements, what are their needs. It was explained to us that in order to operate in this city, we must service the students and the residents of this city. We have set out very hard to do that. We are at every event that the city of Paramount has to recruit Paramount players. We don't want to build a program in Paramount for other players. We want to represent Paramount and its students, its residents, and that's what we have done. Upon meeting with the city of Paramount, it was explained to us that there are conflicts in the field. We understand that. We understand that just as we feel football is important, we know that soccer is important. We must find a way to share those fields, which is why we understand we move when the time is time for soccer. We move out of that way. When we're at other parks, other facilities, when we don't utilize all of that space and all that field, we allow other programs and other things to come in there. We just want you guys to know that we are here to be a part of this city, to grow this city, to grow this community, to work with both the city council, the other programs in this city, and we plan to be here for a couple of decades. So we just want to thank you guys for allowing us to be in your city. Thank you for working with us. Thank you for giving us the opportunity. And just thank you for all that you've done so far. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
No more cards.
furthers? Okay, when we're done with that, then item number 7, public hearing introduction ordinance number 1120, amending sections 29-1 and 29-1.1 of the Paramount Municipal Code regarding incorporation of the county traffic code. We have staff report.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, Council, both number 7 and number 8 are related. You heard about this last month, so I'll now turn it over to our Public Safety Director, Ms. Adriana Lopez, who will handle both items. Adriana?
Thank you, John. Good evening, Mayor, council members. Like John mentioned, we bring this item before you every year. The city of Paramount has always adopted and incorporated by reference the Los Angeles County Traffic Code. And to ensure that our code is up to date, we annually reincorporate the latest version of the county code into our municipal code. The state law does require that a certain procedure be followed for adopting the county codes by reference. The city council must have a first hearing of the ordinance and set a date for the public hearing of the ordinance. The first reading was conducted at the January council meeting, and the public hearing is set for this evening. It is recommended that the city council read by title only, waive further reading, and introduce ordinance number 1120 and place it on the next regular agenda for adoption. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Questions? None? Well, this is a public hearing, though. Okay, so we'll open the public hearing. We'll hear first those in favor, then those opposed. Anyone wishing to speak in favor? Those opposed?
Move to close the public hearing.
Second.
Moved by Hoffmeyer, second by Almost. Close the public hearing. Can we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Guillen. Councilmember Olmos.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Hoffmeyer.
Yes.
Mayor Hansen.
Yes.
Make a motion to read by title only and waive further reading and adopt and introduce ordinance
ordinance number 1120 and place it on the next regular agenda for adoption.
Second.
Moved by Hoffmeyer, second by Gillen, or almost?
Almost.
Almost. To read
That
by
was
title only,
almost. Sorry.
wait further reading, and introduce ordinance number 1120. We have roll call, please.
Councilmember Guillen?
Yes.
Councilmember Olmos?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Hoffmeyer?
Yes.
Mayor Hansen?
Yes. Item number 8, public hearing ordinance, number 1121, an introduction, amending sections 24-1 and section 24-6 of the Paramount Municipal Code regarding incorporation of the County Health and Safety Code. We have staff report.
Ms. Lopez?
Yes, this is a similar item that we bring before you every year. This is for the LA County Code and, I'm sorry, the Los Angeles County Health and Safety Code. Once again, the state law does require that a certain procedure be followed by adopting the county codes by reference. The city council must have a first reading of the ordinance and set a date for the public hearing on the ordinance. The first reading was conducted at the January city council meeting, and the public hearing is set for this evening. With that, it is recommended that the city council read by title only, waive further reading, and introduce ordinance number 1121 and place it on the next regular agenda for adoption. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Questions on this item? None. Again, this is a public hearing. He'll testimony in the following order. First, those in favor, then those opposed. Anyone wishing to speak in favor? Opposed?
Make a motion to close the public hearing?
Second.
Motion by Almost, second by Hoffmeyer, to close public hearing. We have roll call, please.
Councilmember Guillen?
Yes.
Councilmember Olmos?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Hoffmeyer?
Yes.
Mayor Hansen?
Yes. Motion would be in order.
Motion read by title only and adopt it.
Second.
Moved by Hoffmeyer, second by Almost, read by title only, waive further reading, introduce ordinance 1121, place it on the next regular agenda for adoption. We have roll call, please.
Councilmember Guillen?
Yes.
Councilmember Olmos?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Hoffmeyer?
Yes.
Mayor Hansen?
Yes. Item number 9, public hearing, introduction ordinance number 1123, approving zoning ordinance text amendment number 15, adopting chapter 44, article 1, section 44-1, and amending ordinance number 707, zone change number 145, to allow restaurants and food halls with conditional use permit in the PDPS zone at 7210, 7340 Alondra Boulevard in the city of Paramount. We have staff report, please.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor and Council. As you know, we're always looking for ways to creatively use and repurpose land in our city. The hope is to bring about some creative uses that our community may enjoy or actually fulfill the needs that our community may have. You heard a little bit about this approach during the economic development presentation that we gave to you back in December. How do we do this? Well, sometimes it involves expanding the types of uses that we want to allow in a specific zone that we hope will spur this type of creative activity. Other times it involves an owner approaching us with a specific idea of how they want to change the use on their property. So the next item you're about to hear involves the latter. That is, we were approached by a property owner on Alondra who would like to change the use of his property. And with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. John Carver, our planning director, who will tell us more about this. John?
Thank you, John, Mr. Mayor and council members. So this item is a request for a zoning ordinance text amendment that would allow for restaurants and food halls at 7210 to 7340 Alondra Boulevard. The site is a business park that is zoned planned development with performance standards and is located on the south side of Alondra Boulevard, just west of Garfield Avenue. The Planning Commission recommended approval of this item at its January meeting. Here's an aerial of the subject property. It is part of a larger industrial center and is located on the east side of the property at 7340 Alondra Boulevard. The site contains 65,240 square feet, and the building measures 33,100 square feet. Food halls are becoming very popular and feature things such as an open layout, common seating, and innovative food concepts. Here are two photos of the subject property. And this is a rendering of an exterior remodel of the building that was approved by the Development Review Board. The remodel includes contemporary architectural features. There are some staff recommendations to this ordinance to provide consistency with the newly adopted light and heavy manufacturing zoning regulations, and these are related to the types of uses that are permitted, signs, and landscaping. So in summary, this ordinance will provide expanded options for the property owners. A conditional use permit would be required for any future food hall, and this ordinance will allow for expanded restaurant options for people who live and work in Paramount. And we're recommending that you introduce ordinance 1123. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions?
What are their hours, John?
Oh, no hours at this time. It would be processed through the conditional use permit, so we'll be evaluating that once an application has been submitted.
Liquor permit?
We understand that they're not going to apply for alcohol license at this time, but it could happen in the future.
Further questions?
So can you go back to the picture, the drawing?
Sure.
So, go back to the first one,
First one, yes.
the actual. So what's gonna happen to all this stuff on the right-hand side? Because it looks like they're gonna build but what's gonna, like, where
Where the park is
see this,
located?
like the garage area back here?
Oh, in the back?
Right.
Right, so nothing will happen back there. That's part of their warehouse. So this is Plantini Jeans. They have the retail space in the front,
Right.
and then they have a warehouse in the back. So the warehouse will remain.
It'll stay?
Yes.
So go back to your new drawings? Sorry. Okay.
So you can see that in the rear still. It will remain.
Further questions?
That's 3 separate properties right now, right, John? 3 separate businesses or just one business using it?
No, just one business in that building.
Is parking an issue in that area?
No, in fact, we'll be expanding the parking through this project.
Further questions? Okay, again, this public hearing, we heard testimony in the following order. First, those in favor, then those opposed, and revocable by the applicant if necessary. Anyone wishing to speak in favor? Those opposed?
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
A second.
They hit? Okay, no, they're leaving, okay. Been moved and seconded that we close the public hearing, or moved by Hoffmeyer, second by Almost. Sorry about that. Can we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Gian,
Yes.
Councilmember Olmos,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Hoffmeyer.
Yes.
Mayor Hansen.
Yes.
Make a motion we make a motion that we read by title only and waive further reading and introduce ordinance number 1123 and place it on the next regular agenda for adoption.
Second.
Been moved by Hoffmeyer. I can't tell you two apart for some reason with the voice.
You know, all us Latinos
Dylan?
look alike.
Okay, that is what I said. I just, come on. Second by Gillen to read by title only, waive further reading, introduce ordinance number 1123 and place it on the next regular agenda for adoption. We have a roll call, please.
Councilmember Gian,
Yes.
Councilmember Olmos,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Hoffmeyer.
Yes.
Mayor Hansen.
Yes. Item number 10, public hearing, introduction ordinance number 1124, approving the zoning ordinance text amendment number 16, amending chapter 44, article 1, section 44-1, adding section 44-75.131, and adding section 44-8280 to the Paramount Municipal Code to allow and regulate indoor recreation uses in the M1 and M2 zones. We have a staff report, please.
Yes, sir. On the last item, I mentioned you a couple of ways that we look for to creatively use and repurpose land in Paramount. I mentioned 2 ways and we covered one of those ways already. Well, here's the other way. In this case, we don't have a specific property owner like the one that you saw in Alondra who's looking to expand the use of his or her property. Instead, we are expanding the types of uses in a couple of zones that would affect a number of properties, that could potentially affect a number of properties. And this type of use is for indoor recreation. And the zone that it would affect is our 2 manufacturing zones. I want to stress here that what you're approving tonight is not for a specific project. If you approve this item, you will be giving industrial property owners the right to apply to the Planning Commission to have indoor recreation on their property. So with that, I'll turn it over to our Planning Director once again, Mr. John Carver, who will handle the item. John?
Okay. Thank you, John, Mr. Mayor, and council members. This item is a request, excuse me, is a request for a zoning ordinance text amendment that would allow and regulate indoor recreational uses in the light manufacturing and heavy manufacturing zones. We have been receiving inquiries regarding the use of buildings in the light manufacturing and heavy manufacturing zones for recreational uses such as gymnastics training and indoor soccer fields. Industrial buildings tend to have high ceilings that are ideal for indoor recreational uses. This zoning amendment is part of a larger effort, as John mentioned, to introduce new uses into the city's manufacturing zones. The Planning Commission recommended approval of this item at its January meeting. And here's the definition of an indoor recreational facility. I'll just read it real quick. The use of an enclosed warehouse building designed and equipped for the conduct of sports, leisure time activities, and other customary and usual recreation activities, and which is operated within a building as a business and open to the general public for a fee. As John mentioned, indoor recreational uses would be required to obtain a conditional use permit from the Planning Commission, and industrial parking requirements would apply to these types of uses, and these types of uses tend to operate off hours when parking demand is less. The ordinance would allow recreational uses indoors only. The doors of the building where a recreational use is located would need to be closed while operating, and ancillary uses, such as a snack shop, could not exceed more than 20% of the building floor area. In summary, this ordinance helps the city move toward a future with less manufacturing uses, and this ordinance provides new leasing options for property owners and will help to meet a growing desire for indoor recreational uses. And we're recommending that you introduce ordinance 1124, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Again, this is a public hearing. Do you have any questions first off?
Are there any other cities that do this, John?
Yes, there are a number of cities that do this. You can see from the pictures.
Have you had any inquiries from anybody in Paramount that wanted to do this?
Yes, we've had, we've had for gymnastics just recently, like an academy, and then also for indoor soccer, we've received several inquiries regarding that.
Namely, the building on Somerset Boulevard, west of Garfield on the south side. It's been up for lease. Kind of between the post office and Garfield Avenue, there's that building on the south side. That's one that has interest, and that one has a lot of parking, so that would be conducive to this use.
Further questions? Okay, this is a public hearing. Again, we'll hear testimony in the following order. First, those in favor, then those opposed. Anyone wishing to speak in favor? Opposed?
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Moved by Hoffmeyer, second by Olmos. Close public hearing. We have a roll call, please.
Councilmember Guillen? Councilmember Olmos?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Hoffmeyer?
Yes.
Mayor Hansen?
Yes. Motion will be in order then.
Motion order read by title only, number 124, and place it on the next regular agenda for adoption.
Been moved by Olmos, seconded by Gillen to read by title only, waive further reading, introduce ordinance number 1124, and place it on the next regular agenda for adoption. We have roll call, please.
Councilmember Guillen? Yes. Councilmember Olmos?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Hoffmeyer?
Yes.
Mayor Hansen?
Yes. Item number 11. Now we can hear some requirements on putting crosswalks and traffic signals in.
Yes, sir, as
Okay,
promised.
this is a report.
Yes, indeed. This is another educational item that we have for you. As a council member, you may have been approached by a resident asking, well, why can't the city install a crosswalk here or a traffic signal there? And as you've probably already figured, there's a lot more to installing a crosswalk than bringing out a bucket of paint and a paintbrush and just painting lines on the street. So what you're about to hear will help you kind of understand these requests, that they involve a very technical analysis that includes evaluating several standards that have been studied by engineers for decades. So after this, we hope to deputize each one of you as traffic engineers. You will officially become. It's important to note that if a city does go against the recommendation of a traffic engineer and installs a crosswalk or a signal light, say for example, where it's not warranted, that really exposes the city to a great deal of liability. But more importantly, it does expose the community to an unsafe situation. So we'll start off with Adriana Figueroa, who will give a brief introduction, and then she will hand it off to one of our contract engineers. With that, Adriana.
Thank you, John. Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, as John indicated, the item before you is has to do with requirements for crosswalks and traffic signals, but more importantly, for mid-block crossing crosswalks. As you know, we've received requests for, particularly for the area of Alondra, between Downey and Hayter. Although the report is going to focus on what the requirements are in general for installing crosswalks, mid-block crosswalks in traffic signals, our traffic engineer and our deputy city engineer will go and explain how that applies to a typical area such as Alondra between Downey and Hayter. So you will hear some examples that would apply to those areas as they go through the presentation. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Rafael Casillas, who's our deputy city engineer, and I would like for him to talk a little bit about his credentials and let you know about him.
Sure. Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Rafael Casillas. I have over 30 plus years in public works. I've worked in public sector for a variety of municipalities throughout the San Gabriel Valley and in the Gateway COG. I've now worked for Wildan as an engineer, project manager, construction manager, as well as I brought Jeff Lau, who's our traffic engineer for Wildan Engineering as well. So I'm very familiar with these types of circumstances that many communities face that are also are challenges sometimes in reference to crosswalks and traffic signals. So my goal here is to inform the council in reference to crosswalk installations as to what are the criteria and also traffic signals. So what I'll do first is I'll go over the crosswalks and give a moment to answer maybe any questions related to crosswalk installations, and then I'll go over the criteria for traffic signals. Okay. To start, we have mid-block crosswalks. There are marked and unmarked crosswalks. Just to describe the two is basically not all locations have crosswalk markings in the pavement. There are three types of markings generally at crosswalk locations when they are installed. There's the parallel lines that direct pedestrians from one side of the street to the other, which you can see on the photo to the bottom left. There's also what's called continental crosswalks. They're an enhanced crosswalk, basically without the two parallel lines. And then there's the combination style, where there's the continental with the parallel lines. Those are considered to be marked crosswalks. However, once again, I just want to reiterate, you do not need markings on the pavement for it to be a crosswalk location. The reason I say that is because per California Vehicle Code, pedestrians are permitted to walk at crosswalk locations, and both vehicles and pedestrians need to obey the California Vehicle Codes. What that means is that drivers are required to yield to pedestrians within the crosswalk locations, marked or unmarked. As far as pedestrians, they also have some obligations. They're required to make sure that it's safe to enter the crosswalk. They have to make sure that there's enough time to cross the location and make sure they're not just stepping out in front of oncoming traffic. Mid-block crosswalks have been studied. The Federal Highway Administration back in 2002 prepared a report, and they took a look at both marked and unmarked crosswalks, and these are the findings from their report. Basically, the findings concluded that unmarked crosswalks are, how should I describe it, create a false sense of security. Marked crosswalks create a false sense of security, and unmarked crosswalks actually have a higher risk accident rate, about 3 times higher. Primarily, what happens is that the crosswalks may be more visible to the pedestrians. However, to the motorists, they're coming at a different rate of speed. So they've taken a look at that, and these were their findings from their report. Mid-block crosswalk guidelines. We are required to follow the California Manual for Uniform Traffic Control Devices. Basically, they established the criteria that these crosswalk locations get installed and the type of signage that's required at those locations to make sure that they're appropriate. Through that analysis, crosswalks are not recommended at locations where there's 4 or more lanes of travel, where there's a raised median island, where vehicle speeds are posted at 40 miles an hour or greater, and where the average daily traffic count is 15,000 vehicles per day. This is a common occurrence. This picture identifies in a multi-lane roadway. Many times what occurs is that when pedestrians are crossing a multi-lane roadway, the first vehicle off to the shoulder may stop. However, the second lane may not have enough sight distance to be able to stop for crossing pedestrians, and you'll end up with a vehicle ped collision. Before I move forward to traffic signals, I'd be happy to answer any technical questions in reference to traffic, to crosswalks, mid-block locations.
Okay. Questions?
I do.
I
Can you
have
go
one,
back
but-
to the slide that says not recommended? Right, where it says not recommended. Did you go out to the location in question on Alondra by Passage and Perilla where they're
Yes,
asking for a crosswalk?
Yes, we've done kind of a preliminary look at that location, and what we found, it has 4 lanes of traveling, or 4 lanes of traffic, 2 in each direction, has the raised median islands. It does have vehicle speeds, posted speed 40 miles an hour. The 85th percentile is at 42 miles an hour. The average daily traffic count is 25,000 vehicles per day.
So do you have a recommendation for that area?
That location would not fall within the criteria for crosswalk locations.
Okay, but what recommendations do you have? Because clearly there's an issue.
Well-
If people are complaining about it, back and forth through the neighborhood too. So what's your recommendation? We can't just say nothing. Is there another recommendation?
Well, taking a look at the information I provided, that location does not meet the criteria for a mid-block crosswalk.
Anywhere in the vicinity though? Maybe not exactly right there, maybe further back, further up? Are there any other options that were considered?
So the segment between, I'm going to go off memory, from Downey to Hayter, the roadway conditions do not change. They still have the same parameters.
So no other options?
Not on Alondra, no.
So do I. Go ahead.
So as long as there's a medium down Laundry Boulevard, and traffic is going 42 miles an hour on average, you say, and there's 25,000 cars per day going on that street, you cannot recommend that there's a crosswalk there, right?
That's correct.
Is that what I'm hearing?
That's correct. And it's raised median or painted median. One thing that the study shows, it identifies that as pedestrians are crossing and because of the vehicle speeds, actually the severity of the accident increases. So you get more fatalities.
Okay, well, how about then on Paramount Boulevard between Jack's where the shopping centers are, we have this flashing one with the crosswalk that stops people there.
Correct. We took a look at that one, and that one has different parameters. I do not have the exact data on the study that was done for that location, but that has different variables in reference to the crossing at that location.
Well, can I add to that? Because we have one on by Rosary too. So we have the light on Somerset, then we have the light crossing in front of Our Lady of the Rosary, and then we have the light in front of the school. So, I mean, those are close in parameters, so I'm a little confused. I can't be an engineer, but I'm.
No, those are great questions. The one at Rosary, we took a look at that one, and there's that one has the volumes of as far as the pedestrian counts because of the church and the functions at that location, and that's been there for. I'm going to look over to Jeff. For 5 years. 5 years for the flashers, and prior to that, the crosswalk's been there longer than that period of time.
You're saying what justifies that is the church and the school.
No, just different. Each location, I guess, let me back up a little bit. Each location really needs to be studied independently of one another because everyone's going to have a slightly different parameters. As you can see, that's why the criteria just illustrates the different parameters that you would be checking against. We can always take a look at those as well.
Well, we don't want to get rid of them, but what we're saying is if there's exceptions or you're working around some other design plan, I just think we could come up with something on Alondra as well. I mean, that is a major thoroughfare on Paramount Boulevard with a lot of trucks, and I understand that there's a church there, so you have a lot of daily activity, but the same with the supermarket. There's always a lot of people. And if we want to encourage people not using their vehicles as much, you're going to get more people walking and more people on bikes. So it just seems like there would be something that we could do there.
No, I understand. And when I go forward on the next portion, I'll talk about the traffic signal, perhaps at that location. But right now, creating a crosswalk at that location that does not meet these guidelines would not be recommended.
I have one more question.
You have one more question?
Yeah, Adriana, how many accidents have you been recording on Alondra there by Stater Brothers where people are walking across or cars are getting hit and stuff like that from speeding vehicles?
I would have to research that, but just off the top of my head, I only remember the two incidents that have happened just recently where the pedestrian was hit and then also the deputy traffic collision, but she was running across. So off the top of my head, I don't know. We would have to look at the database.
Thank you.
If I may, we did pull the data on the accidents, and I believe there were, correct me if I'm wrong, Jeff, but I believe there were 2, I want to say, in 2018, and 1 that just happened. And that when we looked at the traffic signal, which we'll go into later on in the presentation, one of the requirements is that it's 5 or greater.
Well, I know I drive down Alondra quite a bit, and there's always people trying to get across that street heading to Stater Brothers and stuff like that out of the homes over there.
I have a question on the crosswalk, just for my own general information. If you could, well, maybe I can explain it, what I'm talking about. The different markings on the crosswalk with the, yes, like those first two, or the one clear on the right in the middle one. Instead of having just the 2 lines going, the 2 lines with the cross lines going in there, wouldn't that be seen better by motorists traveling than just the 2 lines going across? Follow what I'm talking about?
Sure, right. Those
It's
would
more
be
visible, maybe. Is a good.
They would be considered enhancements to the
Right.
crosswalk styles. That's correct.
Well, how come they aren't used more?
They're used typically in areas where the crosswalks first are warranted, and
Yeah.
some cities or some locations have warranted additional visibility. But it just depends on the locations. You wouldn't put them at a signalized location because
Well, no,
vehicles
I
always have to
understand
stop,
that, yeah.
or at a 4-way stop or at a stop location. Those already vehicles have to come to a stop.
So
at
there
those
is some criteria for that then, too.
Right. In general practice, that's how you would. break it
Okay,
down.
I'm just curious.
Sure. No, those
Okay.
great question.
Fine. That's all. No more further questions? Okay, go on to signals then, I take it.
So moving on to traffic signals, once again, just want to establish what the guidelines are and how do these intersections get looked at. Traffic signals are installed when they meet traffic warrants. Traffic warrants are a list of 9 types of conditions that occur that they get looked at. And just to kind of summarize it, there's basically 3 that deal with traffic volumes, 2 that deal with pedestrian counts, and then the others have to do with the situation or the location. And when I move on the presentation, I'll share a little more about those. They do need to meet, once again, the California Manual for Uniform Traffic Control Devices. And the primary functions are to help create traffic controls and assign right-of-way to the various traffic movements, as well as to handle maybe any safety concerns at those locations. Once again, I did say there's 9 warrants is what they're called, but basically there are 9 different criterias that each one falls under. Moving through the criterias, I'll go ahead and go over the examples, and we did take a look at Alondra at Hayter as one of the locations, as just preliminary, take a look at some numbers. The first one is warrant number 1. Once again, the first 3 have to do with traffic volumes. I'll go through the presentation, and I'll be happy to come back and go into detail what the differences are on the volumes or any questions that may come up. So in an 8-hour period, there would need to be 53 vehicles per hour from the minor street. Okay, so basically you have heavy traffic on the major street, and then the minor street has vehicles up to 53 vehicles per hour in order for them to be trying to enter into that location. And there's a little more detail behind that I can go over as I go through the other traffic signals. Warrant number 2 is a 4-hour period, very similar, heavy traffic, major street, then a minor street trying to get vehicles on there, but it's a smaller time frame, it's 4 hours. And then these 4 hours can be 2 in the morning, 2 in the afternoon, or it could be a combination of 3 and 1. So it allows for a little more flexibility on how they come up with the numbers. However, it's 60 vehicles per hour. The next one is a peak hour traffic warrant demand. And you take a look at the peak hour, and you have to have 110 vehicles per hour from those locations. Many times you see those sometimes around certain businesses, or they let out at certain times, maybe a type of function, a land use. It might create or generate a high volume of traffic all within a certain time frame. At this location, all three of the traffic volumes were looked at, and this location did not meet traffic volume for any of the three criteria. And those counts were conducted recently and over a 3-day period, and it did not meet those thresholds. Next, we move on to pedestrian volumes. And pedestrian volumes over a 4-hour period is 75 peds per hour. And these are just general peds, basically downtown district or a business area where you have pedestrians. And this is how they would determine on if it meets the pedestrian count for that pedestrian use. Next, we have for school, and it's very similar to the ped counts, or very similar to the volumes, except that this time it takes into account the children's K through 12. And then moving into the final 4 warrants, they're all basically situation or conditional based. This is for a corridor where you have traffic signal systems, and you're trying to meet a certain distance to be able to platoon the vehicles through a corridor or an arterial or principal street. Next, we have warrant number 7, which deals with crash analysis, and it's 5 or more correctable collisions in a 12-month period. And just to kind of give a little background on that one, just to give an example, it would have to be a right-of-way type of collision. Basically, let's say you're trying to make a left turn, and car's getting hit by the opposing vehicle or broadside, and it could be corrected by installing a left turn or left turn movements. Then those would be correctable. It's not just any type of collision, so it has to be something that's attributed to a right-of-way. And then we have 8, which is a roadway network warrant. Those types of traffic signals typically are around like freeway off-ramps, where you have maybe an underpass or an overpass, and you have 2 systems that operate together to allow vehicles to move through and freely, so it relieves congestion through those close proximities and those types of networks. And then lastly, we have warrant 9, which is for at-grade crossings at railroad or light rail, those types of situations. With that, those are all 9 traffic warrants, and like I said, I've gone over them briefly, but I'd be happy to go over any details on any of the locations at this time.
Okay, questions?
Do you have the hours of monitoring that you did for the 8?
For the volumes, those are 24-hour counts. So they set out monitors out there, and they stay out there for the full 24-hour periods, and they pick up the counts all day.
And the 24-hour periods included weekends, days of the week, or what did it include?
Right. So typically counts are taken Tuesday through Thursday. Those are where traffic normalizes. Those are the ones that are used.
And then on your ped count, are you counting peds in the area or peds crossing the street?
It would be peds crossing in that corridor, in that location.
But if it's not legal to cross, how do you expect to get people to cross if it's not a legal designated area to cross?
Well, you have 2 separate questions there. So there's marked and unmarked crosswalk locations.
Mm-hmm.
So whether it's legal is whether or not you're between blocks, mid-block. These locations where they did the ped counts would have been at the intersections, where if a pedestrian obeys the law, and if the motorist is obeying the law, the people can cross.
Okay.
Can you explain that again? I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I don't.
So there's marked and unmarked locations. Okay. So it's legal for pedestrians to cross at intersection locations. Okay. It's just everybody has to obey the law. You have to be able to make sure you're obeying the law when you cross the street. Same thing when you're the motorist. When you're coming through an intersection, you need to obey the law. So those counts were taken at those locations.
So
if it's not marked in an intersection, a pedestrian can still legally cross.
Correct.
Okay, so is that what you were counting, where they're not marked because we don't have a crosswalk there? So it couldn't have been where it was marked. So it was at an intersection that is not marked, but people can legally cross there.
Right. So generally, you would have taken those counts right in that proximity. So just, I don't want to split hairs, but for example, if you're taking counts at the intersection, but they started at about 5 to 10 feet over, but it's in that same vicinity because that's where the intersection is, generally you would count them, because there's, you're seeing where they're crossing at that intersection.
And that's counted by eye or by monitor?
No, those would be by eye, and it would be during you would try to establish when the peak periods are. When it's a school zone, they're a little easier to establish because what happens is that you have the school lets out or the school comes in, so you see peak periods. And generally what you try to do is go when it's the peak traffic volume periods, because that's when you're going to have the highest conflict. If you go during, in the middle of the night, you're not going to get any counts.
It just seems like that gives you a skewed number because if kids are getting out of school at a certain period of time and it's not a marked crosswalk, even though, like you said, legally by law, they're allowed to walk in an intersection, it doesn't mean that they are. Because if I was a parent, I'd say, and my child was walking home, I'd say, cross at the traffic signals, even if you have to go a little further. So I think that even though legally that they could have been crossing and that's what you're counting, I don't think parents are advising or kids are crossing in an intersection where there's no marked crosswalk. Just because it is a high volume of traffic, 25,000 vehicles that go through at any given time. So why would you try to cross there without a crosswalk?
Right. Now, just, not to confuse the PED counts for schools. Alondra is the split of where the locations of the school districts are or the zones. So PEDs tend to cross at the signalized intersections. There isn't any feeder path of travel from north to south on Alondra, specifically at this location. So here we were, out there at those peak hours, traffic volumes, and that's when those PED counts would have been counted.
Okay.
I have a question. Any other questions first off? I have a question on a signal there at the Stater Brothers driveway in the streets right straight across. I go to Stater Brothers quite often. I wouldn't attempt to come out of that driveway and make a left turn on Alondra to come back west, because usually there's 2 or 3 cars there trying to do the same thing, and you just can't get out of that driveway. I go down to Downey, which is hard to get out on during certain times of the day also. Would it be even feasible to look at putting a signal there? You know what I'm talking about?
Right. You're referring like at
because
the
of
business
that,
location.
because people might shop there and live on this end of Downey, and to come out there to make a left-hand turn, it can be kind of nasty at times. And to go through the parking lot and make a right-hand turn onto Downey, that can be difficult to get out too during certain times of the day. So I'm curious as to if it wouldn't be something to look at to put a signal there so that people exiting the parking lot would be able to make a left turn. Well, same thing to make a right turn, because sometimes that's kind of nasty too. Alondra gets a lot of traffic on it, I know. Is that any possibility at all that could be looked at?
No, you bring up a valid point. Commercial businesses, sometimes the volumes are.
You talked about number of cars going in and out, so on and so forth. I don't know if there's that many or not, probably not. But even so, just as a
just take a look
safety
at it.
thing, I'm just curious as to if that could even be looked at all.
Right, even if it
Or
doesn't
further
meet the
investigation, maybe
Sure,
is the way.
absolutely.
If it doesn't meet the criteria, if we request it, is there anything that would not allow it to be there?
Oh, okay, wait, there's a couple different questions there. So to answer your question, I think as far as a location to analyze, I think that's always an option.
Yeah.
Now, in reference to installing a signal where it does not meet warrant, that's not something that's recommended.
Okay.
Yeah, so I would maybe, analyze it and then see what those numbers look like. And there sometimes that does happen where a business that's been there for some time now has an increase of traffic and things
Well, they
change.
do.
and-
It's Stater
yeah.
Brothers, yeah.
Okay.
And I would encourage Friday nights to go ahead and look at that Friday evenings when people get out of work and they frequent the market and then they're trying to leave during traffic hours to get out of there. It's really difficult.
Saturdays
That's a good
also.
point.
Yeah, I think
Or
Sundays
anytime the
too.
schools
Yeah.
are going to school or
I
letting
think
out.
we've asked numerous times about a signal on between Alondra and Downey, and they always come back. They say the traffic engineer says that you can't do it. Now I don't know why you can't put a signal there when you can put a signal on Georgia and Virginia, a block apart.
Right. So meaning the space, are you talking, because I mean, there's, goes from Alondra to Lakewood, there's nothing.
I mean,
Yeah, you're talking Alondra to
Super
Lake,
open.
on Alondra from Downey to Lakewood,
And
right?
they say, I think John said before that Bill says you can't do that, right? Put a signal in there.
At the time that was
Winter?
looked
Yeah.
at, Bill Paget
Not
at the
Paget,
time. Yeah,
not winter.
Bill Paget did at the
Yeah.
time mention that. However, it seems that there is interest by the council to look at the driveway to Stater Brothers. So I'm looking at Adriana. That's something that we could work on. Do you have any input on that, Adriana?
Sure, we can look at it. I know that in the past, it may have been looked at already since Bill analyzed it, and we didn't have the conditions.
Sure.
But maybe we should look at it again to see if any of those conditions may have changed.
And it very well may be when it was looked at, as you had mentioned that Bill Paget did, it may have been at a time that Stater Brothers was not doing as well as they are today, say. Or maybe he looked at it at a different time frame, as Councilmember Guillen said, let's look at it on a Friday, or even Mayor Hansen said on a Saturday. So, yeah, it doesn't hurt to take another look at it and see if that can be done.
And our population has changed.
Good
We were the
point, yeah.
82nd most dense community in the nation, so I think it warrants at least taking another
Absolutely.
look at.
Absolutely, you can do that.
Go there the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. No, never mind. Don't even do that. Any further questions?
Make a motion to receive and file.
Wait a
Well,
minute.
just real quick, just to close, I just wanted to reiterate that crosswalks and traffic signals do have to meet Federal Highway Administration, and then the California MUTCD and a traffic analysis, which those are the criteria that we set it on. So thank you very much, Council, for allowing us the opportunity, and feel free to, if you have any questions.
Thank you for
Okay,
answering our questions.
thank you. No further questions now, right? You had already made a motion by Hoffmeyer,
Second.
second by Almost to receive and file. Have a roll call, please. Guillen?
It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
I'm gonna start looking down here to see which one of you two's mouse is moving, okay? Sorry. Okay, roll call. It was Guillen.
Councilmember Guillen?
Yes.
Councilmember Olmos?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Hoffmeyer?
Yes.
Mayor Hansen?
Yes. Item 12, another report, Planning Department 2019 year-end summary. Staff?
Yes, sir. This is something we try to do each year, and that's to give you a summary of the previous year's accomplishments within the planning department. Last year, as you're about to see, was a very busy year that included a number of wonderful projects that helped to improve the look of our community, and also, in some cases, to improve the lives of some community members, especially when looking at our long-standing residential rehab program for low to moderate income families. So with that, I'll turn it over to our planning director, John Carver, who will handle the item. John?
Thank you, John. Mr. Mayor and council members, this is a presentation of the accomplishments of the planning department in 2019. There were a lot of exciting things going on in the development community, and I will highlight some of those things. Looking first at building and safety, they've been very busy, and building and safety ensures that building codes are met to make sure that the public is safe. While there was a slight decline in permits that were issued and inspections that were made in 2019 over 2018, the Building and Safety Department was still very busy, having issued over 1,100 permits and having performed more than 12,500 inspections. In the Planning Division, over 40 administrative actions were submitted in 2019. In addition to the administrative actions for the metal companies, the 40 applications include additions that homeowners wish to make to their homes. The Development Review Board approved 13 applications in 2019. The Development Review Board helps to ensure that new development and rehabilitation projects reflect quality architectural features. Also in 2019, the Planning Commission approved 18 conditional use permits, and that includes the new Starbucks on Alondra Boulevard. Other items approved by the Planning Commission were 4 zoning ordinance text amendments and 2 zone changes. In 2019, 6 accessory dwelling units were approved. Each of the 6 units will come from converted garages, which means we're going to lose off-street parking. And with more liberal accessory dwelling unit provisions taking effect in January, which I'll go over in the next item, we anticipate that we'll be seeing more loss of the additional loss of off-street parking. There were a number of multiple family residential projects completed in 2019. This is a multifamily residential development that has been transformative for the 15,300 block of Gundry Avenue. Another huge aesthetic improvement is occurring on Orange Avenue between Alondra and Somerset with the construction of 11 multiple family residential units. Across the street from the post office, a 12-unit single-family residential project was completed. This development adds much-needed market rate housing in Paramount. In 2019, we saw the move of the Starbucks at the Pond to the former location of Kentucky Fried Chicken on Alondra Boulevard. This move provided what has become essential to Starbucks, a drive-through. I should also point out that this project was LEED certified. This means that the rehabilitation met green building standards, including water and electrical systems that conserve resources, and this is our first LEED certified project. In the heart of the industrial area, an exciting new project will be a small warehouse and showroom that will be constructed at the former location of Gillen's Market. During 2019, 5 home improvement projects were completed. This program assists low to moderate income families to make improvements to their homes. The city contributes 80% of the cost, with the homeowner contributing 20%. For seniors, the contribution is 10%. These projects are funded through federal home funds and typically include new stucco, roofs, and windows. And there are currently 3 projects under construction right now. This is one of the most exciting commercial rehabilitation projects that I've worked on. This former TV sales and repair business has been a blight on North Paramount Boulevard for decades, and we have worked over many years to try to get this project started, and we couldn't be happier with the results so far. The planning department has also been active in community outreach in 2019. On numerous occasions, we distributed flyers regarding metro meetings on the West Santa Ana Branch Light Rail project. We also participated in the eco-friendly fair, taking public opinion on electric vehicle charging stations. In 2019, the Planning Commission and then the City Council approved several zoning ordinance text amendments, including an amendment that allows multiple family residential projects in the area of the swap meet. Another zoning ordinance text amendment to allow breweries in industrial zones was approved. This amendment is part of our efforts to add new, more environmentally friendly uses in the light manufacturing and heavy manufacturing zones. And finally, just a preview of 2020, a big project will be a complete revision of the Clearwater East specific plan, and this will be to allow for residential, commercial, office, restaurants, and open spaces in the area south of the proposed West Santa Ana Branch Light Rail Transit Station at Paramount and Rosecrans. And we have lots of ideas for this project and look forward to starting. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions? None? Okay, thank you. Item number 13 is another receive and file, an update on accessory dwelling unit regulations. Staff report?
Yes, sir. At the last week's City Council meeting, we highlighted for you a piece of legislation that would have taken the decision-making authority away from you as a City Council and give it to the state when it comes to residential development. That was known as SB 50, and as we all know by now, that legislation failed to pass the Senate. However, another idea that keeps successfully coming out of the state legislature is with regards to something called ADUs, or accessory dwelling units. We talked about this with you some time ago, and we even brought to you an ordinance revising our policy on ADUs. Now, the state has placed their stamp once again on cities with regards to ADUs, and so we wanted to update you on that. And with that, I'll turn it over once again to our planning director, John Carver. John?
Thank you, John. So we'll start off by what is an accessory dwelling unit. So an accessory dwelling unit can be a garage conversion. It could be an addition to an existing home, or it could be a new detached building. On January 1st, new state regulations regarding ADUs became effective. The city's current ADU regulations do not meet state law, and our ADU ordinance will need to be modified. In the meantime, we are required to follow state guidelines, and essentially, our updated ordinance will have to contain the state regulations that we will be reviewing. This is a summary of the city's 2017 ADU ordinance, which again is no longer valid. However, ADUs were allowed only in single-family residential zones, and one ADU was permitted per lot. The size of an accessory dwelling unit was limited to between 300 square feet and 500 square feet, and the property owner had to occupy one of the units. New state law allows ADUs in all residential zones. Junior ADUs are now also allowed. That means you could subdivide your house and provide a separate entrance, and that would be considered a separate, a junior ADU. And a single-family residential lot could have a single-family home, it could have an accessory dwelling unit, and it could have a junior ADU. So you could have a total essentially of 3 units on a single-family residential property. New state law has reduced size requirements, so you can only require a minimum of 220 square feet, and an ADU can contain up to 2 bedrooms. There are also no longer any property owner occupancy requirements. Also, because all of Paramount is within a half mile of a transit stop, we cannot require any off-street parking. And looking forward, we'll be working with the city attorney to develop an updated ordinance to bring to the Planning Commission and then to the City Council, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions?
The parking gonna work for this one?
Parking's going to be,
Just a statement, I'm just saying, yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna get
Yeah.
No questions?
Make motion to receive and file.
Second,
Look this
that was me.
time. I know, I looked. Motion by Hoffmeyer, second by Almost to receive and file the accessory dwelling unit update. We have roll call, please.
Councilmember Guillen?
Yes.
Councilmember Olmos?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Hoffmeyer?
Yes.
Mayor Hansen?
Yes. Comments and committee reports. Council members? Start with Vice Mayor.
Well, I don't have anything to report this last time. I didn't have anything to say last time, but all I know is on this, I belong on the board of the JPIA. And these people crossing and jaywalking streets like that, these claims come in and they're astronomical what these people receive and what it costs cities and stuff like that. So it's a tragedy to have an accident like we had there, but I think there should be a way that we can work that out. Up in there and make it safe.
Referring to Alondra Boulevard.
Alondra Boulevard,
I'm hoping we can. We will.
That's it? No further?
Oh, that's enough.
I just have 2 things really quick.
Okay.
You know, I just, Dave, maybe me and you can catch up about this later, but is there an issue with the school districts in the city when it comes to permit of using the fields?
No, actually, I wanted to jump in at some point and say that the school district has been incredibly generous with their fields, but they have needs as well. So sometimes there are conflicts that they have other programming that serves the student population there that doesn't allow us to get exactly what we want. But you saw that they open up Roosevelt, Alondra, and Paramount High School West, and they do that year round. And they, like us, have problems maintaining that field space, but they have been very generous.
And just a second comment, I guess, whether appointed or elected, we're all up here to do the same jobs to serve our community. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. Okay.
I just want to inform everyone that tomorrow night there's a town hall meeting at the Elks Club on Alondra Boulevard, and that's going to be in reference to Lubico, which is a business right outside Paramount on the other side of, I guess that's 70th Street, Flower 70th Street. And so that location affects Smokler School and the air quality there. So the town hall meeting will be held at the Elks tomorrow at 6. And then I just wanted to say that today I spoke at the California Endowment Center, and I spoke on a panel with the AQMD, DTSC, and the LA County District Attorney's Office, and some other people. And one of the things that was mentioned tonight is, about chromium 6. And one of the things that was said today was, yes, chromium 6 is bad. We're moving on from that, and we're going to talk about how we regulate and what our plan is moving forward. So that's already been established, that chromium 6 is not good. But I wanted to mention that they've already recognized that, and so it was very interesting to talk about. I gave just a resident's perspective on, how we can communicate better with AQMD and DTSC and that type of thing. So that was a very good panel discussion, and there were a lot of people present today. And then I just want to say that we attended, Brenda was there as well, the town hall, not the town hall, the parking subcommittee. And I feel that if we put in the effort, I think we're going to be able to come up with solutions. But I think that, we talked about long-term solutions, and I think we really need to concentrate on some short-term solutions. And somebody mentioned tonight, about shuttling people from one place to another. Not a bad idea. There's parking lots we can use. I mean, we have to be creative here. And I think if somebody were to do that, there's incentives that we can give for maybe, having less cars and something to look into. That's it.
Okay. Well, since last week, I don't have a whole lot to report either. I've had no meeting. This week and next week, I have some meetings. So next meeting, I'll have something to say probably. Staff, any comments?
Yes, just one. Just to reiterate what was said up here about looking for creative ways to find parking, we will definitely do that. One such way that I forgot to mention, in particular to the Passage and Parilla area, is there is the Moonstone Plaza. We're approaching the property owner to see if there's a potential there for permit parking. Maybe there is, where residents can purchase a permit or somehow a permit system be established. That's only if the private property owner is open to that. But we are definitely exploring that option. We know the owner from way back in the day. Actually, John did. He was working on that project, I believe, back in the day. So we're going to be in contact with that. So yes, definitely we are looking at every creative thing possible.
Okay, well, good. Things are being looked at. It just doesn't happen overnight. A lot of private property owners don't want to do that, I'm sure. But maybe we can work something out. And with Edison, that's being looked at too. I know there was a letter signed on that. Yes.
Yeah, DWP we're looking at.
Right, or DWP, excuse me. Yeah,
Correct.
that's a being also, but they take forever usually. Okay, then we're going to adjourn this meeting to the next February 18th at 5 p.m. And now call the successor agency meeting of the redevelopment agency to order. We have a roll call. Members, please.
Councilmember Guillen?
Here.
Councilmember Olmos? Councilmember Hoffmeyer?
Yes.
Mayor Hansen?
Here.
And we'll let the record reflect that Councilmember Lemons was previously excused.
Okay, fine. Thank you. Public comments? Consent calendar?
Move it.
Second.
Moved by Hoffmeyer, second by Gillen. I already looked. I'm going to try to remember to make a habit of that. To approve the consent calendar, go have a roll call, please.
Councilmember Guillen?
Yes.
Councilmember Olmos? Vice Mayor Hoffmeyer?
Yes.
Mayor Hansen?
Yes. Okay, no further business. Then this meeting is adjourned till March 3rd at 6 p.m. Oh, we're supposed to wrap.